It was an ordinary morning when Ada, the billionaire's maid, finished cleaning the living room and headed to the kitchen to prepare breakfast. She had been working for Mr. John, a successful businessman, for nearly 2 years. Ada never imagined herself working for a billionaire, but after moving from her small village to the city in search of a better life, this job had become her lifeline. Her mother, who had struggled for years to raise her, had always said that the city was full of opportunities. Ada hoped this job would be her chance to give her mother the comfort she desired. As she set the dining table, Mr. John's personal assistant, Chike, entered the kitchen. Chike was always calm and professional, rarely ever addressing Ada unless it was about work. "Ada, I need to talk to you," Chike said with an unusual urgency in his voice. "Mr. John needs a date for an important business dinner tonight. His date cancelled last minute, and he has asked if you could accompany him." Ada paused, unsure what Chike was implying. "A date? For me?" "Yes," Chike said. "It's sudden, and Mr. John's actual date can't make it. He needs someone presentable, someone who can hold their own in front of his business partners. You've been here for a while, and you carry yourself well. He trusts you." Ada felt a wave of anxiety. She had never attended any high-class events. How could she possibly fit in at a business dinner with billionaires and investors? "You don't have to do much, Ada," Chike assured her. "Just sit beside him and smile. Stay polite. He will cover everything else." Ada's heart raced. She didn't want to disappoint Mr. John, who had been nothing but kind to her. With a deep breath, she nodded. "Okay, I'll do it." Chike smiled. "Great, you will need to dress up. I'll have a stylist come to help you." As Chike left, Ada's mind filled with worry. What would happen tonight? Could she truly pretend to be someone she wasn't, even for one evening? That evening, Ada walked into the grand ballroom alongside Mr. John, feeling more nervous than she had ever felt in her life. The room was filled with people in expensive suits and gowns, their conversations soft and sophisticated. The chandeliers above glowed brightly, casting a warm light over the elegantly set tables. As they took their seats, Ada tried to keep calm. She kept her eyes down, focusing on the silverware in front of her, trying her best not to attract attention. But she couldn't help but notice one of the men at the table staring at her. The man's name was Okenna. He was tall and commanding, with a quiet presence that made him stand out even among the powerful business people around them. Throughout the dinner, Okenna's gaze kept drifting towards Ada. His brows furrowed as if trying to solve a puzzle. There was something about her face, something uncomfortably familiar. Okenna couldn't shake the feeling that he had seen her before. But where and how? The questions spun in his mind, but he remained composed, not wanting to draw attention to his growing suspicion. As the night went on, Okenna's curiosity deepened. Finally, during a break in conversation, he leaned over to Mr. John. "Excuse me, Mr. John," he said casually, his tone calm. "Your date for the evening, what's her name?" Mr. John smiled. "Oh, this is Ada," he replied. "She's actually my assistant for the evening, a last-minute fill-in." Okenna nodded slowly, turning his gaze back to Ada. "Ada," he repeated softly. "And where are you from, Ada?" Ada looked up, surprised by the sudden attention. "I'm from a small village called Nze," she said, her voice quiet but steady. At the mention of Nze, something clicked in Okenna's mind. Nze? That was where Uche had lived. The girl he had loved all those years ago. Could it be? Could this young woman be connected to his past? But Okenna said nothing more. He didn't want to jump to conclusions. He needed to know more before he made any assumptions. The rest of the dinner continued without incident. But Okenna's mind was racing. Could Ada be Uche's daughter? His daughter? He kept his cool, not revealing his thoughts. But deep inside, he knew he had to find out the truth. After the dinner, Okenna couldn't stop thinking about Ada. The way she looked, the way she spoke, it reminded him so much of Uche, the girl he had loved when he was younger. The memories of that time came flooding back. It was over 23 years ago, just after Okenna had finished his WAEC exams. He had been waiting for his results to come out, and he had spent that period in the village of Nze with his family. His father had insisted they visit the village to reconnect with their roots, but Okenna hadn't been too excited about the idea. To him, village life was dull and quiet, a far cry from the bustling city of Lagos where he had grown up. But everything changed when he met Uche. She was in SS2 at the time, a smart and lively girl with a radiant smile that seemed to light up the whole village. Ukenna had been instantly drawn to her. They had started talking and she had helped him learn the local Igbo dialect. The more time they spent together, the more Ukenna found himself falling for her. He had even told his father about his feelings, but instead of being happy for him, Ukenna's father had been furious. "You are falling in love with a village girl?" he had shouted. "You must be out of your mind. I won't allow that. If you even think about pursuing this, I'll cut off your education. No school abroad for you." Ukenna had been devastated. He had big dreams of studying abroad and building a successful career. He couldn't risk losing that, and so with a heavy heart, he had let go of Uche, promising himself that once he was done with school abroad, he would return for her. But life had other plans. When Ukenna left for his studies abroad, he tried to keep Uche in his heart, but as the years passed, the distance grew too great. He became immersed in his studies, focusing on his ambition to build a successful career. During his time abroad, he met another woman, Sarah. She was smart, beautiful, and from a wealthy family, everything that his father approved of. Slowly, Ukenna's love for Uche faded, replaced by his new life with Sarah. He never returned to Nze. He never thought about Uche again until now. Could Ada be the daughter he never knew he had? The next morning, Ukenna woke up with a heavy heart. He knew what he had to do. He couldn't rest until he found out the truth. Without wasting any more time, he made arrangements to travel back to Nze, the village he hadn't seen in over 2 decades. As he drove through the familiar dirt roads, memories of his time with Uche flooded his mind. The laughter they had shared, the promises they had made under the stars, it all seemed like a lifetime ago. Ukenna couldn't believe how much had changed since then. When he arrived in Nze, it was almost as if time had stood still. The small huts and fields looked just as he remembered them. He asked around for Uche and the villagers directed him to a small house on the edge of the village. Ukenna's heart pounded as he approached the house. What would he find? Would Uche even remember him? What would she say when she saw him after all these years? As he knocked on the door, the suspense nearly tore him apart. The door creaked open and there stood Uche, older now but still with the same gentle eyes he remembered. For a moment, they both stood in stunned silence, neither knowing what to say. "Ukenna," Uche finally whispered, her voice filled with shock. "It's me, Uche," Ukenna replied, his heart heavy with emotions. I've come to ask you something important." Uche's expression softened. "What is it?" Ukenna took a deep breath, unsure how to begin. "There is a young woman named Ada. She works for a man I know. She said she's from this village." "Uche, is Ada my daughter?" Tears welled up in Uche's eyes as she nodded. "Yes, Ukenna, she's your daughter." Ukenna's knees nearly buckled. He had abandoned Uche all those years ago, and she had been left to raise their daughter alone. "Why didn't you tell me?" "I didn't know how," Uche said, her voice trembling. "You left and I had no way to reach you. By the time I found out I was pregnant, you were already gone." Ukenna's heart shattered as the truth sank in. All these years, he had lived his life in comfort, while Uche had struggled to raise their child alone. When Uche discovered she was pregnant 23 years ago, her world came crashing down. She had just turned 17, full of dreams for the future, but all of that was shattered the moment her parents found out. Her father, a strict and proud man, couldn't contain his anger. "You have brought shame to this family," he had shouted before lashing her with his cane. Her mother wept bitterly, disappointment etched deeply on her face. They had hoped for a better future for Uche, and now, in their eyes, she had ruined it all. Despite their disappointment, her parents eventually calmed down and decided to support her. "Once the baby is born, we'll take care of the child while you go back to school," her mother had promised, her voice filled with the hope that Uche's life could still turn around. Shortly after Uche gave birth to Ada, tragedy struck. Her father fell ill and passed away suddenly. Only a few months later, her mother followed. Uche, an only child, was left alone in the world with a newborn baby and no support. Her uncles and aunts wanted nothing to do with her. To them, she was a disgrace, a young girl who had made a terrible mistake by having a child out of wedlock. Uche had to drop out of school without even writing her WAEC exams so she could take care of her baby. Uche's dream of furthering her education vanished. She took on back-breaking jobs just to make ends meet, doing anything she could to raise her daughter Ada. But as hard as she worked, she could only afford to send Ada to secondary school. By the time Ada finished secondary school, there was no money left to send her to the university. That was when Ada, determined to help her mother, decided to go to Lagos to find work and support them both. Ada's decision to leave the village and head to Lagos had not been an easy one, but she knew it was necessary. Her mother had sacrificed everything for her, and now it was her turn to provide for them. Saying goodbye to Uche had been one of the hardest moments in Ada's life. She had promised her mother that she would work hard and make her proud. When Ada arrived in Lagos, she was overwhelmed by the sheer size and pace of the city. It was nothing like the quiet, familiar life she had known in the village. Jobs were hard to find, especially for someone with only a secondary school education. But Ada was determined. She took on whatever work she could find, cleaning, cooking, and running errands, until she eventually found herself working as a housekeeper for Mr. John. Despite the challenges she faced in Lagos, Ada never forgot why she was there. Every naira she earned was carefully saved, with most of it sent back home to her mother. Ada's hard work paid off, and she was able to help her mother live a better life, even though she couldn't fulfill the dream of going to the university yet. Ada always believed that if she worked hard enough, things would turn around for both of them. Little did she know, her life was about to take a dramatic turn the moment she walked into that business dinner and met Okenna, the man who had unknowingly left her and her mother behind all those years ago. As Okenna sat across from Uche, listening to her recount the painful years that had passed, guilt consumed him. The more she spoke, the heavier the burden on his heart became. He had abandoned her without even knowing the extent of her suffering. "I didn't know, Uche," Okenna whispered, his voice barely audible. "I didn't know you were pregnant when I left. If I had known." Uche looked at him, her eyes weary from years of struggle. "It wouldn't have mattered, Okenna," she said softly. "You had your life ahead of you. Your father made sure of that. And me? I was just a village girl with no future." Okenna felt his heart tighten at her words. She was right. His father had made it clear back then. There was no future for him and Uche. His father had threatened to cut off his education, to disown him if he didn't follow the path laid out for him. Okenna had been too ambitious, too driven to risk it all for love. But now, sitting here with Uche, seeing the life she had been forced to live because of his absence, Okenna couldn't help but wonder what might have been if he had fought harder for her. "I didn't forget about you," Okenna said after a long pause. "But when I went abroad, I met someone else. I got caught up in my life there, and you moved on," Uche finished for him, her tone bitter but not angry. "I expected that." Okenna looked down, ashamed. He had moved on, but the pain he had caused Uche had never left, and now it was too late to change what had happened. Uche sighed deeply, the weight of her past heavy on her chest. "Ada has been my only joy," she said, her voice softer now. "She's a good girl, Okenna. She's strong, and she has worked hard to help me. She never blamed me for our struggles, not once." Okenna nodded, thinking back to Ada, the young woman he had met at the business dinner. She had carried herself with such grace and quiet strength, and now he understood why. She had grown up in hardship, raised by a mother who had sacrificed everything for her. "I want to help her," Okenna said suddenly, his voice firm with resolve. "I don't know how much I can do, but I need to make up for lost time, for what you both went through." Uche looked at him skeptically. "Help her? How?" "I can help her finish her education," Okenna offered. "I can give her the opportunities I never gave you. She deserves it." Uche studied him for a long moment, her expression unreadable. "It's not about money, Okenna," she said finally. "What she needs is a father, someone who will be there for her. If you want to be part of her life, you need to do more than just throw money at the situation." Okenna nodded, understanding the depth of what Uche was saying. It wasn't just about making up for the past financially, it was about stepping up, being the father he should have been from the beginning. I'll do whatever it takes, he promised. But deep inside, Okenna knew that reconnecting with Ada wouldn't be easy. She had grown up without him, and he had no idea how she would react to learning the truth. Back in Lagos, Adanna had no idea her life was about to change. After the business dinner, she returned to work, unaware of the storm that was brewing behind the scenes. Okenna was determined to uncover the truth, and soon, Ada would come face to face with a past she never knew existed. As the days passed, Okenna struggled with how to approach Ada. How could he reveal to her that he was her father? How could he explain why he had been absent all her life? Finally, after much deliberation, Okenna decided to visit Ada at Mr. John's apartment. Mr. John is his very close friend and also his business partner, so it was easy for him. He knew that the truth could no longer be hidden and that it was time for Ada to know who he really was. When he arrived at the apartment, Ada was surprised to see him, but assumed it's him visiting his friend Mr. John. She greeted him politely and served him and Mr. John drinks as was part of her duty. Okenna hesitated for a moment, then took a deep breath. Ada, I need to talk to you. There's something important I need to tell you. Ada looked at him curiously, sensing the seriousness in his tone. What is it? She asked, her heart beginning to race. Okenna sat down across from her, his eyes filled with emotions. Ada, I think I'm your father. The words hung in the air, heavy with shock and disbelief. Ada stared at him, her mind reeling. How could this be true? How could the man she had met just days ago be the father she never knew she had? Okenna drove home with a heavy heart. The revelation that he had a daughter he never knew existed weighed heavily on him. His mind raced as he thought about how he would break the news to his wife and children. How would they react? Would they accept Ada? Or would this tear his family apart? As he entered his house, his wife Sarah greeted him with a warm smile, but Okenna could barely return it. He had always been open with her about his life, but this was different. This secret, which he had only just uncovered himself, would change everything. Are you okay? Sarah asked, sensing his unease. Okenna sighed and sat down, gesturing for her to join him. There's something I need to tell you, he began, his voice low and serious. Sarah's brow furrowed in concern. What is it? I have a daughter, he blurted out, the words stumbling out faster than he had planned. A daughter I never knew I had. Sarah's eyes widened in shock, and she sat back in disbelief. What do you mean, Okenna? A daughter? How is that possible? Okenna explained everything. How years ago, before he went abroad, he had fallen in love with a girl in the village named Uche. He told her about the threats his father had made and how he had left without knowing that Uche was pregnant. And now, after all these years, he had come face to face with his own child, Ada. Sarah was silent for a long time, her emotions swelling. So you are telling me you have another child out there and you didn't know? I didn't know, Okenna said, his voice pleading. I swear I didn't know. If I had known, I would have done something. But now that I do know, I can't turn my back on her. She's my daughter, Sarah. I need to be there for her. Tears welled up in Sarah's eyes, not just from the shock, but from the betrayal she felt. She had always thought she knew everything about her husband's past. But this was a part of him she had never imagined. What about our children? She asked, her voice shaking. How are you going to explain this to them? Okenna took a deep breath. I'll tell them the truth, just like I told you. They deserve to know. After the shocking revelation at Mr. John's house, Ada couldn't sleep that night. The thought of Okenna being her father filled her with confusion and doubt. Could it really be true? Could this man, who had been a stranger to her all her life, actually be her father? The next morning, Ada made the decision to visit her mother in the village. She needed to hear the truth from Uche herself. She arrived at their small home, her heart pounding with anxiety. Mom, Ada began, sitting down beside Uche. There's something I need to ask you. Uche looked at her daughter with concern. What is it, Ada? Ada took a deep breath. Do you remember a man called Okenna? He said he's my father. The color drained from Uche's face as the weight of the truth settled on her shoulders. She hadn't spoken Okenna's name in years, but now the past was catching up to her. Slowly, she nodded. Yes, Ada, Okenna is your father. Ada's eyes filled with tears as she listened to her mother recount the story of how she had fallen in love with Ukenna, how his father had torn them apart, and how she had been left to raise Ada alone. "I didn't want you to grow up feeling abandoned," Uche said softly. "I didn't tell you because I thought it was better that way. But now that he is back in your life, you deserve to know the truth." Ada sat in silence, processing the weight of her mother's words. Ukenna, the billionaire, was her father, and now she had a choice to make. Would she let him into her life, or would she continue on without him? After hearing the truth from her mother, Ada made the difficult decision to allow Ukenna to take responsibility as her father. She didn't know what their relationship would look like moving forward, but she couldn't deny the connection they shared. Ukenna, for his part, was relieved when Ada agreed to meet with him again. He wanted to make things right, even though he knew it would take time for them to build trust. He promised Ada that he would support her in any way she needed, whether that meant helping her with her education or simply being there for her. But there was one more hurdle to overcome: introducing Ada to his family. Ukenna's children, Tobe and Chiamaka, were just as shocked as their mother when they heard the news. The idea that they had an older sister they had never known about was difficult to process. Tobe was particularly conflicted. He couldn't help but feel resentful, as though Ada's existence somehow threatened his place in the family. Chiamaka, on the other hand, was more curious than anything else. She had always wanted an older sister, and now it seemed her wish had come true, though not in the way she had expected. As for Sarah, she struggled with her own feelings. She couldn't help but feel betrayed by Ukenna, even though she knew this wasn't something he had planned. It was hard for her to accept Ada, not because of who Ada was, but because of what her existence represented, a past that Ukenna had never fully shared with her. Despite the tension, Ukenna insisted on bringing Ada into their lives. He invited her to their home for dinner, hoping to ease the transition and help his family accept her. Ada arrived at Ukenna's home feeling nervous and out of place. She had never imagined herself in a situation like this, meeting the family of a man she had only recently learned was her father. When she walked into the house, Sarah greeted her politely, though there was a stiffness in her demeanor that Ada couldn't ignore. Tobe barely looked at her, while Chiamaka offered a shy smile. The dinner was awkward, with strained conversations and long silences. Ukenna tried to make small talk, but it was clear that the family was still grappling with the new reality of Ada's presence in their lives. After the meal, Sarah pulled Ukenna aside. "This isn't going to be easy," she whispered. "I need time to adjust to all of this." "I understand," Ukenna said softly, "but please give Ada a chance. She didn't ask for any of this." Sarah sighed, torn between her loyalty to her husband and her own feelings of insecurity. "I would try," she promised, though deep down, she wasn't sure how long it would take for her to truly accept Ada as part of their family. Over the next few weeks, Ada slowly began to integrate into Ukenna's life. She visited his home more often, and although things were still tough with Sarah and Tobe, she developed a close bond with Chiamaka, who seemed eager to have her as a sister. Ukenna did everything he could to support Ada, helping her enroll in university and ensuring that she had the financial resources she needed. He was determined to make up for the years he had missed, even though he knew he could never truly replace the time that had been lost. As for Uche, she remained in the village, watching from afar as Ada's life changed. She was happy for her daughter, but there was a part of her that still felt the sting of Ukenna's absence. She had raised Ada alone for so long, and now, in a strange twist of fate, Ukenna was stepping in to take a role he had never been around to fulfill. As time passed, Sarah found it harder and harder to accept Ada's presence. It caused a lot of conflict between her and her husband Ukenna. She couldn't shake the feeling that Ada was a constant reminder of a life her husband had lived without her. Even though Ukenna reassured her time and time again that his love for her hadn't changed, the insecurity lingered. One evening, after Ada had visited the house, Sarah broke down in tears. "I just don't know how to handle this," she admitted to Ukenna. "I feel like I'm losing you to the past I wasn't a part of." "You are not losing me," Ukenna said gently, holding her close. "Ada is my daughter, but you are my wife." You and the kids are my family, and nothing will change that. But it feels different now, Sarah whispered. Everything feels different. Despite the difficulties, Ukenna and Sarah worked through the issues together. Ukenna made sure to reassure his wife that she was still his priority. And over time, Sarah slowly began to warm up to Ada. It wasn't easy, but she knew that Ukenna's heart was in the right place, and she didn't want to stand in the way of him building a relationship with his daughter. Tobe, on the other hand, took longer to come around. He struggled with feelings of jealousy and resentments, but eventually he realized that Ada wasn't a threat to his place in the family. With time, the two siblings began to find common ground, bonding over their shared experiences and their love for their father. Months passed and the Ukenna family began to heal. Ada became a regular part of their lives, and though there were still moments of tension, the family had found a way to move forward together. For Ukenna, the journey had been difficult, but it has also been rewarding. He had reconnected with a part of himself he thought he had lost, and in doing so, he had gained a daughter he never knew he had. Ada too had found a sense of belonging she had never expected. What began as she simply acting as a companion to her billionaire boss at a business dinner led to the life-changing discovery of the father she had unknowingly longed for all her life. She had always felt a void in her life, a missing piece of her identity, but now, with Ukenna by her side, she felt complete. As the family gathered around the dinner table one evening, laughing and sharing stories, Ukenna looked around and smiled. It hadn't been easy, but they had made it through. They had become stronger together, and for the first time in a long time, Ukenna felt at peace. And though the road ahead was still uncertain, one thing was clear: no matter what challenges came their way, they would face them as a family. Thank you, our dear viewers. Kindly subscribe to our channel and like our video so that we can keep bringing you more interesting stories in this channel. Bye!